think that's how I took the plunge, right? And again, the story is true for my co-founders as well, right? Both of them were also in very different spaces when in their journeys ProVakil came about, right? And so I don't know how, but somehow the three of us, I mean, all three of us were on very different paths. The fact that we're together working, building a company for the last 3.5 years, it's amazing.
So I have a question, which I mean, it's something that even I've been trying to find out. How do you take that leap of faith, right? Of course, it's very scary. And so what is that perhaps one or two metrics when you just let go of everything and jump?
Some of them were really fancy, right? They were doing high profile litigation, working for chief minister.
No, sometimes the drama is very real. That I absolutely agree.
But again, so those stories are great, right? I mean,
Right, great. Hi, Shashwat. Thank you so much for taking out the time today and speaking with us at Prolawgue. Shashwat is the co-founder at ProVakil, which is a legal tech startup that is working at consolidating not only legal data, but is also working in the entire suite of legal operations. We'll obviously be talking more about what ProVakil does and where it's heading from Shashwat himself. But before that, we'll ask a few questions about how Shashwat ended up at ProVakil and in the legal tech space. So Shashwat, thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much for doing this with ProVakil.
All right, great. Shashwat, so you're actually a graduate in economics. How did you end up in the legal tech space, and were you always interested here, or was it just happenstance?
I would say it was happenstance, right? I mean, I graduated about 10 years back, and I've been working in the startup space for close to 6-7 years now. And I think college had nothing to do. I mean, college has a lot to do with it, but nothing really in terms of the choice of legal tech. I didn't really know anything about legal till about 6 or 7 years back, right? I mean, there's nobody in the legal space in my family, so I didn't know any lawyers. I hardly have any lawyer friends. But I think it happened by chance. So, I mean, the three co-founders, one of them happens to be a lawyer, right? Started my career with a bank, worked there for some time. Was in Bangalore, like so many other people of our generation, very, very anxious to do something on my own, struggling for ideas. What can we do? Those are the days. So when I graduated from college, those weren't the days where you saw startup ads on television or startups coming to campus to hire, because there were no startups, right? The only startup at that point in time that existed was probably Flipkart, right?
I mean,
it was only Flipkart, right?
Even and only books, I think, to that end at that point of time.
Yes. I remember ordering a book from Flipkart in second or third year of my college, and when I was doing this internship somewhere in Delhi in 2008 or 2009, and I was working under a guy who's from IT Delhi, and he told me his friends started this company. It's really cool. You can order books online. Amazon was not in India. Nobody used e-commerce back then, right? I mean, so it was so cool coming back to my hostel, ordering a book, getting it delivered. But yeah, I mean, at that point in time, startups were just sort of breaking out, coming up. Especially being in Bangalore, I feel so lucky. I could have easily ended up in Bombay being a economics graduate. I mean, and I remember during placements, most of the companies I sat for were banks, right? And most of those jobs were in Mumbai. So I don't know how it would have played out, right? I mean, my current co-founder was my flatmate in Bangalore, and things would have been quite different had I not landed up in Bangalore. So I think a lot of it has to do with Bangalore.
So, okay, great. So I think all startup enthusiasts clearly need to be in Bangalore at one point of time.
Not anymore. So many. So I'm in Pune right now, and the city is bustling with startups, right? I mean, very interesting stuff. Pune happens to be India's legal tech hub, by the way. Most of the legal tech in India happens.
I want to hear more about it. I know Practice League sits out of Pune. I know
all the legacy. So iCertis, one of the largest global contract management companies, so their major development center is Pune. You have a lot of these legacy legal tech companies like Practice League, another legal data companies that's over here. And so many of the companies that I end up hearing, are generally from Pune, right? So me and Pulkit, my co-founder, we have this joke, right? I mean, the choice of Pune was also just random, right? I mean, it wasn't planned. Just we landed up here, and then we realized that every other company that we hear of is doing legal tech is here in Pune.
That's brilliant. And so I'm actually going to track back a little bit to your time, perhaps at the bank that you mentioned, and then how you made that entire shift to a startup. Because I know you started working at Oyo after the bank job.
So I got a job at HSBC, and I was part of the data sciences team. We were a team out of Bangalore, which used to work with global HSBC businesses and do a lot of data crunching for the marketing operations, the debt collection operations, risk operations, right? I mean, so risk modeling, a lot of those things, right? And so I worked with HSBC for close to 3 years. I was working on their loan modification programs post the financial crisis. I was part of the housing mortgage team, building debt collection models. Who would know, right? I mean, and now today at ProVakil, we work with a lot of debt collection teams on a collections product that we have, but I wouldn't have known that, right, back then. So I was there, but again, got really bored after a year or so, year and a half. Left HSBC, started doing something with a friend, didn't work out 6 months, quit it, and then somehow landed up at Oyo and spent a good 3 years there, learned most of the things that I know about startups today at Oyo. And so those 3 years were really, really formative in the sense that I didn't know. I mean, so HSBC was a great experience understanding the financial world, how large companies work, and the scale of things, right? But it was also really slow, right? I mean, you were doing this one piece and you did this for 2-3 years, and on a personal level, you did not feel that there was too much happening. But then Oyo happened, and Oyo was, in the first 3 months, I had 2 different roles. I was in 6 different cities. I was hiring people. I was hiring people senior than me. I was hiring people from IIMs and, working with teams, across, right? And none of what I had done there, I had done there previously, right? I think it was the 3rd day or 4th day in the company. And then by the time the meeting ended, Ritesh, who's the founder, looked at me and he said, like, he's the new guy, right? Let's give this project to him. And yes, I was supposed to do that project, right? I mean, and I was like really shocked by these people trusting me with this, right? I mean, there's so much, and that was really kick-ass, right? I mean, I would say the experience at Oyo was a special place in the sense that really smart people building at really breakneck speed, right? I mean, the kind of speed and scale at which things were done at Oyo, that I think that impression and that experience was great for me, right? I mean, I learned a lot from my peers and people who from my seniors there, and then moved to a new business vertical they created, and then went on to launch a country for them. Went to a new country, Nepal, launched it for them. So there were interesting things at Oyo, but again, I think 2.5 years into the job, started realizing that sort of bug bit me back again. That I came here because I didn't really have too many ideas at that point in time, or people at that point in time who I wanted to work with on a startup. But started feeling that maybe it's time to think about doing something. And that's when the opportunity came about, right? I mean, with my co-founders, and that discussion started happening, and thought that maybe it's the right time. That's how I took the plunge, right? And again, the story is true for my co-founders as well, right? I mean, both of them were also in very different spaces when in their journeys ProVakil came about, right? And so I don't know how, but somehow the 3 of us, I mean, all 3 of us were on very different paths. And the fact that we're together working, building a company for the last 3.5 years, it's amazing.
So I have a question, which I mean, it's something that even I've been trying to find out. How do you take that leap of faith, right? Of course, it's very scary. And so what is that perhaps 1 or 2 metrics when you just let go of everything and jump?
So ideally, I mean, there should be something, some part of that vision should be something that you have, absolute confidence on, right? I mean, for instance, for me, one of the most important factors in that was my co-founder Pulkit, right? I mean, so Pulkit was also working at that point in time when I was at Oyo. He started working with the company who's now, which is also a unicorn now, Innovator. I don't know if you've heard of them. So he was their chief product officer, and okay. Pulkit joined them when they were 20 people and left when they were valued at $100 million and on the path to become a big company in the US healthcare space. And he also quit at that juncture where we started feeling there's something happening at ProVakil. If at all we want to try something, this is the time, right? So for me, the confidence was that Pulkit is definitely somebody that I've respected a lot in terms of how he thinks and his he genuinely is somebody who likes technology, is a tinkerer. Generally is trying, very excited about good stuff that is happening with tech, right? And the kind of discussions we had around ProVakil and the things we could potentially do felt very exciting, right? And probably a little bit of that excitement had gone missing in Oyo because it had become such a large company. Probably, right? Again, I'm saying this with hindsight, you try to rationalize things, but that's what I felt at that point in time, that this seems a little more exciting. And it is one thing that I realized is that it is very, very difficult to find good co-founders, right? I mean, people, so finding, again, so my life learning in terms of professional learning has been prioritize working with good people, right? If you're working with good people, good things should happen, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of luck involved. Nothing is guaranteed, but and ProVakil seemed like a team at that point in time where I could take that leap of faith, because the other direction looked like if I stayed at Oyo maybe another year or two, then quitting it would be even more difficult, right? I mean, it seemed just at that point in time that I wanted to do this, and the faith was that I was working with good people. Still knew very little about legal as a space, as an industry, just that the broad thesis of what ProVakil was trying to do at that point. ProVakil was really young. Akshat alone, the third co-founder, was running it with probably 5 or 6 people, right? But it seemed like there is something here. Those early signs were there, and that's how both me and Pulkit took the jump, right? Again, and I don't know. I mean, so the story there is with 3 founders. Akshat is a lawyer. Pulkit and I are batchmates from IIT Kharagpur. So both I and Pulkit, and we were flatmates in Bangalore. So we spent 3 years when he was at a job and I was at a job thinking about startups. What can we do? So many business plans and so many startup ideas that we had thought of together, but never really did that back then. And Pulkit and Akshat are brothers. So Akshat was pursuing law. He just graduated, was working in Delhi as a lawyer, litigating lawyer, going to courts, working in the State Council of Rajasthan's office as a junior lawyer. A year into it, he was really frustrated with all the stuff that young lawyers have to deal with, right? And so we would hear his stories. I was in Gurgaon in Oyo, Pulkit was in Noida, Akshat was in Delhi. We used to often meet over the weekends and exchange stories. I had Oyo stories, Pulkit had innovation stories, and Akshat had courtroom stories. So again, and those some of them were really fancy, right? I mean, they were doing high-profile litigation, working for chief minister.
No, sometimes the drama is very real. That I absolutely agree.
But again, so those stories are great, right? I mean, but the pithy state in which the tools were, right, and ended up talking a lot about it. I mean, Pulkit felt very strongly, right? I mean, and he said that kind of problem they talk about. This is a weekend job. Like we can build this small app for you over a weekend. Why do you keep doing this thing manually, right? I mean, are you stupid? I mean, this is a website. This is the information. We'll hire an intern and do this for you, right? I mean, if not anybody else, just use it on your own. Why are you spending so much time doing this thing? And so this happened over the course of a year and a half, and then Akshat took the leap of faith where Pulkit said, okay, during the summers when the courts, vacation, let's hire an intern and build an app only for the Supreme Court, right? I mean, and so that's how it started, right? I mean, the idea, the seed was in few of those discussions that happened over the course of these weekends, right, over a year. And Akshat set about doing this and got, after a lot of failure, got initial success. People started showing interest, and that's when we started realizing there's something happening here.
So the first product was if I'm not wrong, and please feel free to let me know if it's something else. I understand was a product where you were looking at just getting case statuses and pulling out case orders and just making data that's available otherwise on the Supreme Court website more accessible with ready notifications to the users. So how did you pinpoint that that's the area you probably want to work at?
So that's what I said, right? I mean, Akshat was a litigating lawyer, the only person in the room who knew any law. And what we built was an app for Akshat, right? I mean, Akshat and Pulkit sat together, and it was so frustrating that, he would talk about experiences where at 10:30 in the night, something was uploaded on a court's website. They didn't know about it. At midnight, they would get to know. And then early morning, he has to brief his boss. And, they were never prepared, right? I mean, and if you are working in an office, in lawyer's office, where there are hundreds of, potentially thousands of cases ongoing, it's a small team working, just keeping track of what is going on at that point in time in India was practically impossible, right? So most lawyers ended up missing dates. You would show up in a court and tell the judge that, just didn't know.
Take
right?
an adjournment and move on.
Take an adjournment, move on, right? You would have two parallel hearings, right? So one in Tisari and one in, probably a tribunal in Delhi, right? I mean, there's so many such instances where it was so obvious, right? It felt at that point in time. But again, as it is, right? I mean, legal is a slow adopter, right? I mean, so at that point in time, the thesis was this, right? I mean, so they hired an intern. They coded up an application for the Supreme Court saying that, at least for Supreme Court, you will get all the updates. I just put in the case numbers and anything that the court publishes, they will throw you a notification. You don't have to then, think about what information, when, how will I get it. It'll just, you will get a notification, right? And so Akshat got that app, he started using it, and then he showed it to a few of his friends. And then people started asking that how much does it cost? And that's when we started realizing, there's a business idea.
Potential.
There's potential for other people. The other people are interested, right? And I think our first lucky break came, and again, I think he doesn't know that we haven't told him, Mr. Gopal Subramaniam, right? I mean, Mr. Gopal Subramaniam, Akshat, when this set off, right? Some other lawyers in the Supreme Court started using the app, and it was mostly friends and family. You knew some of them started paying, but Akshat then started going practically door to door, right? I mean, landing up at lawyers' offices, showing them this app and giving them a free trial, and a lot of rejection, right? I mean, lots and lots of rejection. The lawyers make you wait a long, long time, right? So you're sitting outside their office before you get an audience. But somehow he landed with in Mr. Gopal Subramaniam's office, and he looked at it and he said, "You know what you have doesn't work for me, but what I'm looking for, an IT manager in my office, somebody who used to work left. If you hire me one, I will buy your app for my entire office, 15 people, but you will have to add all the high courts." And that happened. He wrote us. So Akshat the next day spent, I think, interviewing people and hiring like an IT admin for his office. And that's how he wrote us like a 3 lakh rupee check to build the application, adding all the high court data into the application. And from there on, right? I mean, they're on the journey for the next year and a half, with just adding more and more courts. So I think in one of the first year, we added up about 350 courts across Delhi, most tribunals and important forums across the country. And then in the Supreme Court, it became a thing, right? I mean, if you're a Supreme Court lawyer, it was refreshing because nobody was building apps for lawyers. All the other services that also existed, Bombay had something called lawyer services, and those were all SMS based, really, flooded with false positives. So they'll just pick your name and throw you an update. And I think, and their Pulkit's approach to tech, right, really helped. So we built out a really clean app, very good user interface. And lawyers loved it, right? I mean, and for the first year and a half, we ended up acquiring close to 500, 700, 800 lawyers who started using the app, started paying to use the app. None of it was free. And that is a point when I and Pulkit joined full time, right? I mean, we started realizing there's definitely something here. So we jumped in full time. And since then, it's been a journey. Right? But that is what we still specialize in. Litigation is still one of our strong suits. I think we have, I can say it with a lot of confidence that we have the best product in the country. We keep innovating a lot on it. And obviously now in the last 2-3 years, we've switched focus and doing a lot more around legal tech than just the basic case updates bit. But that we still today have close to 3,000 lawyers across the country who use that application. We're really proud of it, right? I mean, in terms of what we've built, India is a difficult sort of, while there is, technology available, I mean, we're still as jurisdiction fairly, I would say, robust and open in terms of the data infrastructure, but it is for our needs, it's really inadequate, right? I mean, as a lawyer, you can't really work with the e-courts application. As a company, you really have no way to manage your cases with the scale of litigation that happens in our country.
Yeah.
So there's an acute need, and I think we found ourselves in the spot where we thought we could kill it. So,
I will definitely, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the other newer products that ProVakil is working on. But I just want to take a short segue, and I want to understand, when you started looking at how court data was kept and, just generally how you were collating it, what were the things that perhaps, courts can do better in just terms of data repository to make everybody's lives easier?
The best thing that courts can do is have open APIs. But that, I think, is a little far away. And again, we have to understand that, a lot has happened. So a company like ProVakil could only have existed in 2015-16. It was just not possible to build ProVakil in 2011 because the e-courts project itself is so new, right? I mean, and credit where credit is due. I mean, there is there is a lot of work happening there. But I think definitely from a structural standpoint, right? I mean, so I think one of our biggest pain points, right? And what we also feel is that, you have so many different courts in India, and each of these courts follow a different framework, right? So if you go back to the registry processes, right? And I'm sure in the legal fraternity, for your audience, people who are glued in have heard so much, right? The courts and the E-committee and the Supreme Court are talking a lot about digital filings and, digitizing the entire court processes, but it's still at the back end of the registry level. The Supreme Court has a different process. Every High Court has a different process. District level courts have a different process. Tribunals run differently. So the frequency at which data comes out, the formats in which data comes out, all of that varies, right? Right? I mean, courts could use technology for filings, for rostering, for just digitizing all documents. So instead of doing physical filings, all of the filings start happening in digital fashion. Just imagine how much information would then be available, would be machine readable, which you can process. So much of the information, gaps would be narrowed down. But again, so back end there, the courts can improve a lot in terms of technology, and there are a lot of great organizations in India like Vidhi and Daksh who do a lot of work with working with high courts and different court committees to give them suggestions. But I think that's a long project. That's a decade-long project. We are very hopeful that in this decade, we would have one of the most. I mean, I believe that we are on a path to be an economy where this is a crucial reform. You hear so many people in Niti Aayog, in the government talking about it. The judiciary is very well aware, right? And we've had really visionary judges like Justice Lokur, who did such a great job, right? In terms of today, ProVakil is possible because of people like him, right? Because of court infrastructure where data is available, at least, right? There's so many geographies across the globe where data is just not available. But having said that, it is still a nightmare, right? I mean, if you're a litigant or a company or a lawyer, still it's a mess for you to deal with. So I'm very hopeful. Let's see. I mean, we're quite hopeful.
All right. So coming back to ProVakil, Shashwat, you've expanded your offerings a fair bit. Can you perhaps walk us through what your focus is now and what these new offerings are about?
Yeah. So, so we started off with lawyers, right? And we built that application. So we did litigation management. We were working with lawyers. Lawyers ended up telling, they wanted more, right? So they wanted to manage their documents, their expenses, their timesheets, their bills, client communications. So eventually it ended up being a practice management application where lawyers were using it as a practice management app. Then we started selling it to law firms, smaller law firms, and chambers, and that is where it was, right? But what we still realized is that lawyers and law firms were still skeptical, and they had their limitations in terms of what they could spend. What we started seeing was that a lot of these lawyers that we worked with, right, the companies that they were representing, right, they were really in a bad suit, right? I mean, they had no internal tools to sort of track, manage what was happening with litigations. And so they started putting us in touch with a lot of their clients, and that is how the enterprise version of our product came about. And the first product in that space was enterprise litigation management. So we, again, took our product apart, redesigned it from an in-house team's perspective of, legal operations within a company, and, managing counsels, pens, reports and dashboards, legal intelligence, and redesign the entire product around that. Did that, realized, there's more to legal than just litigation. And that is what happens when you do a decent or a good job, right? I mean, so clients started prompting us to other directions, right? So I remember it was Havells, who's been a client for close to 3-4 years now. And they said, you do this for litigation, why don't you do this for trademarks? Similar problem statement data is available. It's difficult tracking and managing those. So we built out an application for trademarks. And then I think it was Mankind Pharma, our first really large enterprise customer, where we were doing this sale, right? Where we went in with our IP and our litigation product, and we were presenting to their management, and they said, all of this is fine, your product is great. You see 2-3 other product, everything, this stands out. But I'm not going to give you this contract till I manage my entire legal ops on this. So I have contracts, I have compliances. My team is using these 4 different tools, and I'm happy with all of them. I can't take a tool with just 2 and then 2 things are left out. You guys seem like a good team. We are willing to put our trust in you and give you this time. Take 6 months, do something on contracts, do something on compliance, and then deploy. I want a single tool where everything comes together in one day. And that was a very strong insight, right? I mean, that was the reason when we went back and analyzed so many companies we were trying to sell. When we eventually did not sell was they were also looking for integrated solutions, right? I mean, my cases is fine, but what about contracts, right? I mean, we do so many contracts. There is interlinkage between my litigation and my commercial contracts, my IP and my litigation, right? And that is when our eyes opened, we understood that contracts is a huge space. So is compliance, right? I mean, and that is when we understood that what we are doing is a real core of what this industry needs and what we are well positioned to do with enterprise legal management. And so today we do entire gamut within legal operations. So litigation, contracts, compliance, and IP, and then allied things, right? So notices. So the way we've designed this tool is we understand legal operations is not just these 4 areas. These 4 areas are 90% of the problem statement. But then if you're deploying a solution for a team, they would have other internal processes ongoing within the legal team, right? So for instance, we work with an FMCG company which does in their IP piece, they also do, there's offline infringement, right? I mean, they have teams which are raiding shops which are selling counterfeit products. How do you manage that, right? We work with banks and NBFCs where pre-litigation, they have this entire collections process in which you have lakhs and lakhs of notices being generated, tracked. So there is this entire process where pre-litigation collections need to happen, right? And then there is a platform that can be used for automation of processes over there. That's again part of the legal operations there, right? So we've designed a system which is customizable. So you can trigger. So today you can design your workflow on ProVakil as a user, right? So you can go into the system, design, okay, this is the workflow that I need, and that workflow will then be available, right? So it's a low code, no code approach, if you've heard of that, right? So practically a no code tool where you can give me a workflow and I'll configure it. So it doesn't need to go back to an engineering team, right? The account manager will work with you and configure that exact workflow, that data model in the tool itself, right? So in that sense, you can do a lot more in terms of processes. But again, from a depth point of view, in terms of where we try to impart a lot of depth in our product, it is around litigation, it is around contracts, IP, and compliance, legal services, and what all is not touched by tech today. The market is immense, right? And so the question is what not to do and what rather than what to do, right? And there's so much to do in legal tech.
Definitely. Now you have like 100 law firms and some 150 companies that are currently using ProVakil, right? Which is like a huge leap for 3 years that you have been on the market, including an entire 18 months in the pandemic, so to say, which is insane. So can you tell us how this entire expansion has happened, or like how did you actually scale this much in this little time?
So it's been pretty organic, right? I would say, I think one thing that has really kept us in good stead through the pandemic also is those first 1 or 2 years that, where we did not take that approach. So I see a lot of interest in legal tech in India today. There's so many people trying to build companies in this space. But I think personally for us, what has worked is that we have really worked hard with our customers, right? I mean, so the initial 300, 500 lawyers who use ProVakil still refer us to other customers, right? Still take our product. There are lawyers who I have been so shocked, right? I've been sitting in somebody's office and the lawyer would call up somebody, give them a detailed pitch, write an email about ProVakil and why you need to use this service. I've been in lawyers' rooms where their clients were sitting, they called us in. They sat and gave a demo of our product to their client and said, this is a great product, you should use it, right? I think our growth has been that, right? I mean, our growth has been, we've now just started spending money on marketing where we realized, we can't just be happy that, it's just growing through word of mouth and, people just call us up and want to take a demo. And we started hitting that in the last year and a half too. But before that, it was purely organic. We sold to 10 lawyers. Those 10 lawyers got another 20 lawyers, and that's how it grew. And then those lawyers started referring it to their clients. Last 2.5, 3 years, we've taken conscious effort in terms of then building other systems and processes in the company, and sales and marketing is one. So I run sales for the company. And so we've now started engaging with the community, now started building all of the mechanisms to put our brand out, right? Talk about what we do in terms of digital marketing, in terms of LinkedIn, in terms of expanding a network. We go to a lot of events. Again, pandemic hasn't been that great, but we try to go to events and meet people. And we're doing a lot of exciting stuff on content now, right? I mean, trying to build good content so that, again, we're able to spread the word of what we're doing, and also in the process create information repositories, content for legal professionals where they can find value, right? So that's been a strategy. That's how we've grown. We've had some really good people join us. We've had really low attrition over the last 4 years. So some of the people who've come in who know a thing about email marketing or how LinkedIn works, and they've learned, picked up things, and now we have detailed processes around how we do that, and we have a fairly decent, I would say, lead generation engine. A lot needs to be done, but I think so. Both organic, wherein our customers get us new customers. So I think that is the best thing that you can do, right? A happy customer is worth 100, right? I mean, so you sell to one bank, you do a good job. People from those banks travel to other banks and other insurance companies and NBFCs, and you suddenly have people calling you up and checking, right? And also, I mean, I think there are organizations now in this space which are also doing a lot of job of building communities. So I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard of Agami, Sachin, the work that they are doing, right? Agami has been great, right? I mean, they've introduced us to so many people, and not a lot of it might be directly getting you clients, right? But just the kind of people that we've come in contact with, so that has helped, and hopefully, I think we can keep up the performance, right? Because we're definitely not the cheapest product out there. Our intent is to build, because we're not a funded startup, we're a bootstrapped company. So revenues is what drives our growth, and so we don't make those choices of selling a product at prices where it's not even would be feasible to service the client. So we charge a premium for our product, but then we try to provide really good service, right? And we haven't had too much attrition in clients also, right? I mean, maybe a few lawyers and a handful of companies, but barely had performance-related attrition in terms of customers. And so that's been a success. I think that's been one of the key areas of success, that doing a good job.
So just for the convenience of our audience, right? Agami is a social entrepreneurship initiative that's been run and headed by Sachin Malan. You can check them out. We'll put the link in the description. Just coming back to a couple of things that you talked about, right? I understand that yours probably isn't the cheapest tech tool on the market, but tech tools are also very expensive to sort of generate, make, maintain, and possibly even deploy, because your work doesn't end at creating the product. You have to work constantly with the customer and the end client to ensure that the integration is done, the change management is done, potentially customization is done. I'm sure there are 100 different things that come to your mind, and I'm happy to talk about that as well. So can you perhaps tell us and help walk our non-technical audience to understand what is the cost of tech and where is the cost in building tech coming from, actually?
So as you rightly said, right, it's not just about building the application, right? I mean, you can just tick off features, right? I mean, India today, thankfully, and thanks to Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, the cost of building software has come down substantially, right? I mean, it's the reason why, again, as I said, right? I mean, so our generation is lucky because we're able to do these things, right? I could not have even thought of, starting a tech company, and I personally don't come from a tech background. Because everything was so expensive, right? If you were doing this in probably 2005, you did not have the cloud. You could not really just hire an intern and build an enterprise application. But today it is possible. So the cost of development has definitely gone down in terms of what can be achieved, right? And there is so open source community is so big, right? And so in terms of, so there's so much from the open source community that makes our life so easy in terms of developing these applications. But see, the crux of it is this, right? I mean, so technology, building tech for B2B, right? I mean, B2B applications, you can't build it in a room, right? There can't be 20 people or 5 people sitting in a room on a whiteboard thinking that, okay, what should a contract management system be like? You could have an hypothesis. You then go develop a prototype, you go to a customer, tell them, convince them to start using it. They start using it, giving you feedback. This works, this doesn't work. And then you have to be nimble and agile in terms of, iterating and getting to a point, right? So we started building litigation management in 2015, and we're still building it. And we will be building it for the next 20 years, right? I mean, if we are in business for the next 20 years, right? And so it's an iterative journey where tech keeps evolving. What is possible keeps evolving. So you have to be agile in terms of that. So that is one, right? And then again, and this is purely from a B2B standpoint, right? I mean, B2C might be a slightly different experience. But in B2B, you have to be really cognizant of the customer. You don't know what the problem is. The customer knows what the problem is, right? So you have to solution the product out with customers. So when I'm deploying. So the reason why we have that, I spoke about the no-code approach where you can product customizable, because there is no other way we could exist. So the reason why we are way more competitive than all the other applications is that we take 8 weeks to deploy. Deployment of a contract management system which is not designed with that project ethos, where the use case for an insurance company is different, their internal processes are different, their hierarchies are different, their contract types are different, everything about that process is different. So then it starts when you sell to 10 companies and those are 10 different products you're building, right? At very early in the process we started realizing this, right? So today the way we try to build product is also this, right? So we run all our internal processes on ProVakil. So we are now trying to execute all our contracts on ProVakil. Because until unless we do it ourselves, we would not know. Right. I might build a contract management system, do a fancy presentation and say that everything works. And then finally when the client will use it, there are so many good products that fail because of deployments, right? They just don't understand the intricacies of working with clients. So we have a data services team that helps our clients migrate their data. We do detailed deployment discussions to customize the offering, and the product is designed that way, right? And the product constantly keeps evolving, right? In terms of making sure that we can offer as customizable an application as possible, right? So a lot of the innovation that we end up doing is not on the feature, right? It's not on contract review or document management or title search or things like that, right? Then a lot of our engineering is on that front, right? Where then the experience really goes up for the client.
So I know legacy systems that exist and legacy software that exists in law firms and legal departments is usually like a big hurdle for all tech that's trying to sort of sit with all of these departments, right? You're clearly doing a great job with it. But apart from just having a very customizable product, what else are you doing to cross this hurdle?
So I talked about customizability in the product. The second is focus. So as I said, right, focusing on internal tools, right? So a lot of the product is built for our deployment teams and not for the customer, right? So I think that is a really, really strong, I would say, competitive advantage. If I'm able to deploy this product faster, if I can save your resources there, if I can preempt what kind of problems are going to come up in deployment and build tools and solutions for that, right? Just imagine you're deploying it at ICICI Bank or any other bank for that matter, in tens of thousands of cases. And you have to give them case updates. So then all the case numbers need to be neatly tagged. No bank in India, at least the ones that we know, has all of that information in place. Everything is scattered because your team's scattered in different cities, right? Do you have the backend framework to then ingest those 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 cases in a format where that data is not exactly in the language of the courts and then translate it into the language of the courts? That process takes 9 months for most companies. That process, and it took us 6 months for our first large client, and it was such a huge learning that we can't do this. We literally cried and gave up. That this is who thought that it was going to be so hard. But then that is how you realize that if you are able to do this, then nobody can compete. So then we end up building tools for our teams. So a lot of 70% of the tech we build is for our internal teams and not for our customers. So unless you have efficiencies there, you will not be able to compete. So then what happens is most companies will do a shoddy job at deployment. And once you've done a shoddy job at deployment, because you sold the deal cheap to win the contract, but then you realize the cost of doing it, right? Because when you work with a large company, they come with a lot of data, processes, stakeholders, managing that stuff. So if you don't have innovation on that front, then it becomes really challenging.
I think that's a great takeaway for us. I actually wanted to ask you now that, just in terms of COVID, etc., have you seen any kind of change in customer behavior or client behavior, the kind of customers and clients that you're actually targeting?
So definitely, right? COVID has definitely, I would say, people just couldn't escape it, right? When your offices are shut, when you have no way to go physically meet people and have those conversations in person, review things in physical formats, most teams in India, and this is not just legal, this is in finance, this is in all other functions, right? HR, pick it, right? Companies realized in the first 3 months of the pandemic that they came to a standstill, right? They were not able to process invoices. They were not able to, do simple things, right? Because a lot of teams realize they just don't have a common platform to work. And how much of their information is sitting in the inbox? Very little, right? So in that sense, especially in the enterprise side of things, globally, and India is no different there, right? We are definitely seeing very, very strong adoption. Companies, where we went and met 2-3 years back, where legal was always looked upon as a cost center. Why do you need tools? Why do you need to spend money? Hire one more person. You're this person. What are they doing? That is the reason that you would get, right? You'd go meet legal heads and they were like, I love your product, but I just don't have any funds for it, right? And so we've seen a fairly strong, I would say, resurgence of those people coming back, and definitely a lot more intent around contracts. Contracts is big, right? Because while other areas, litigation, I would say, still stunted because courts haven't functioned so much, right? So the companies are still saying, okay, pandemic khatam ho jayega, then we'll buy it. Because then they're rationalizing it, saying, so the courts are not functioning, so we will give you the budget, but we'll give you after the pandemic and the courts are in full swing. But contracts, people started realizing, companies realized that they were not able to do business.
And even a lot of contracts took a hit because of the pandemic, right?
Exactly, right? And so many of those contracts had for the first time in our history, that clause that nobody really paid heed to and attention to. So many companies started going back and checking what is that clause, what do we have it there, right? And suddenly you felt so handicapped, right? You have 2,000 documents. How do you, and you don't even have access to all of those.
All of them, yeah.
I remember talking to GC and saying that we actually during lockdown we tried to go to office to 3 files. And while people were out on the roads trying to find medicine, we were going to office trying to somehow get those files so that we can answer queries that the management was asking, right? And so contract is happening in a big way, right? It's a global thing, and India also is seeing companies of all sizes, whether these are promoter-driven, mid-sized companies, large companies, everybody wants to automate this area, and there's a lot of exciting work happening there.
Yeah. You did a webinar on digitizing contracts. Is there like an available ready recording of it? Because I'm sure our audience would love to check that out at some point in time.
Oh, absolutely. We will share that with you. And
great. So then it will be in the description. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So clearly legal professionals have struggled with not having tech in time. But what do you think law students can perhaps do, or very early professionals on an individual level? I'm not talking about on an enterprise level in terms of just tech adoption. And do you have some tools in mind, or how do I just make my life better?
So what my suggestion would be, right? Again, I haven't really thought about this topic in so much depth, right? I think one is definitely if you're a young lawyer today or studying to be a lawyer, tech can be a competitive advantage, right? So if I'm sure this will happen structurally in legal education also, but if you're a young lawyer, try to go online, pick up resources and read and try to get yourself well versed with tech, what is happening, right? And just start picking up tech in your everyday thing, right? So it doesn't need to be legal tech tools, right? While those are great, right? If you can get, I'm sure there are a lot of, so for instance, I'll give you an example, right? If you're a lawyer and you're using free online resources where, let's say you have case law research, you have free resources available, right? See if you can try and collaborate with some of those, especially free resources where you can try to do projects which are around technology. Mm-hmm. So work, and those are the best type of internship that you can do, right? So rather than just saying, okay, I will start using the tools that lawyers use, try to see that, as a student, you still have time, right? And especially from the college where I come from, students tinker a lot, right? So there's one area where I feel strongly in India, at least, is case law research, right? Mm-hmm. I think the best case law research products in India will come out from law schools, where over time, when lawyers start getting some sort of technical education as well, and they start collaborating with a lot of these legal researchers, people putting out a lot of data and creating public repositories of data, then once you start understanding the structure of their data, you start working with them, that can be really, really powerful, right? So that is one direction in which I would sort of say. The other thing could be, trying to see if you can get, so for instance, for us, if a law student would come up to us, right, and say that I want to use your product, we'd be happy to offer that product to them for free, right? If you're a lawyer who wants to track cases, again, putting it out there, reach out to us. If you're a student, right, not a practicing lawyer, then we're happy to offer an app.
Do you also have some internship slots, or are you open to taking some lawyers on board at some point of time?
We've just started doing that, and especially around some of the stuff that we're doing on legal data. So we have opportunities on content where lawyers want to write, and we have opportunities around. So it's going to be hard work. It's not going to be. So it's not going to be a fancy internship, right? I want to put that disclaimer out there, right? But it'll definitely be something where you'll end up learning with. So if you're interested, if you want to see the inside of a legal tech company, and we're happy to take interns. We don't actively hire interns, but if people apply, we definitely look at those applications.
That's great. I think that will be a great spot for anybody to be at. I just have one last question, and that's more of a segue. And it's like more of a follow-up question on what I just asked. So for somebody who is a young professional or a lawyer in that sense, how do they enter the legal tech space? Because now there are startups sprouting, I think, a dime a dozen, if I may say. And investments definitely flowing in. So where do I start? Do I just go around and apply? Do I read something? Do I do a certificate? What should be the things I should keep in mind?
So I would say just go ahead and apply, right? I mean, companies like ours, right? I mean, young companies, we don't specifically, when we're hiring people, right? Unless you're hiring for very, let's say you're hiring engineers, software engineers, and you're looking for that skill, right? But we hire a lot of generalists, right? So the only thing that we're looking for is, what we are concerned with, if you're ambitious, you really want to learn, you really have that entrepreneurial spirit where you have a tinkerer's attitude, you want to do things, and then just be open about it, right? So don't be. So one thing that I've sort of found in lawyers, and again, it just might not be true, right? I mean, some of the lawyers I've met, they've sort of predefined notions of what they can do and what they cannot. Don't have that. Startups hate that, right? When you're going to startup, really go with an open mind, where you're open to doing things, right? I mean, so if somebody says, will you do sales? And if that is something that you think you probably have a chance at doing, try that out, right? So more lawyers, I think, who want to work with startups in general and legal tech startups more specifically, just be open to trying out things, because frankly, if you ask me, do legal tech startups need a lot of lawyers? The answer is you need a few lawyers. You need, obviously, you can't, as I said, right, you can't build products. I can't be one day sitting in my room and thinking, I want to do a legal tech startup. So let me now start thinking, right? Because obviously, legal tech is definitely not a space where I would say it is practically impossible to build a company without the founder being a lawyer. Practically, not impossible, but very, very tough, right? Unless you really interface with the industry, it's a really hard industry to crack in, right? I mean, just to get people to trust you with all the sensitivity with the data and the information and how things have been, it's tough to break in, right? And so just be a little open. I think a lot of doing a few gigs at a few startups will give you insights into what is possible. And legal per se in roles in terms of where you're using your legal acumen might not be abundant, but so you could be if you work with, I'm sure, legal tech startups, this space is just opening up. It's a great place to go, understand the market, understand how startups are built, and then being a lawyer, you obviously have that competitive advantage of you thinking about parallel opportunities, other opportunities where it could be interesting to build companies, right? And so as I said, right, just opening up, we're just starting, right? I mean, legal is just at the brink of adoption, right? So it's very exciting, and more lawyers should do that, right? I mean, I don't know how exciting jobs are.
I am going to probably keep quiet on that, but I agree with you. Like, a lot of changes right now being brought in by engineers rather than lawyers, and I wonder what ramifications of that would be like, at least in the access to justice space. It's so purely driven by so many engineers at the point of time.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a collaborative effort, right? I mean, so that, I think that anxiety or whatever you call it, that tech is going to really change things. When you hear so many lawyers in these conferences just keep talking about AI. It's really far away. Right? Nothing substantial is going to happen which is going to affect what lawyers are doing. It's what I feel, personally, is that legal is going to be a much more integrated department in a company or in a business, right? You can't, while you were sitting out in a silo doing things separately, you're much more integrated in the business. You are part of that overall ecosystem of data, of processes, and a lot more integrated that way. And lawyers, I think, are personally going to be very, very empowered with a lot of great tools, right, at their behest, right?
Yeah. I just have one last question before we close for the day, which is to understand, so where is ProVakil going to go from here? What are the plans?
That's the $1 million question, right? So, see, we don't know, right? I mean, so we definitely have a thesis today. We believe that, what we're building is a legal operations platform. We want to cover everything that comes under legal operations. We want to service as many industries as possible, understand their use cases, and then design those solutions for those use cases, and be a platform for legal innovation, right? I mean, in the sense that there's things that we're doing around legal data, then we have the whole platform, and then we have machine learning and AI, right? Where with all of the information in the system, whether it's external public legal data or internal documents and files, then you can use machine learning algorithms to really, draw insights, analyze, automate, right? But so the ambition today is to build a legal operations platform and build a global one, right? So our ambition is not just India. We want to sell a platform, explore other geographies, and see what lies there, and I think build some really exciting technology, right? We want to be proud of the tech we've built. So that's the only directional hypothesis we have. It might be different 2 years from now. I don't know. We didn't know this 2 years back. Today I think so. It's at the intersection of what you believe you're good at and where the market is, right? And so so this is what our understanding of where the market is, and with the capabilities that we have. And startups are an evolutionary journey, right? You will realize things as you go on. What you end up becoming, you might not have a conception of that today, right? So, but again, from a strategy standpoint, this is where we are. We are not competing with people who are building legal data or people who are building lawyer marketplaces. We have no intentions of going there. A lot of our clients, when people come and ask us, so many lawyers work with you, why don't you offer a legal? We're in a different business, right? We're building tech. We just want to build tech. We're a pure product company. The only service element of what we do is to help our clients get used to our product and make better use of it. But the only thing that we want to do is build products for legal teams and make their life easy.
Great, and thank you so much once again, Shashwat, for taking all the time, and good luck for the plans to go international and for everything that we just spoke about. Do you have anything towards the end to perhaps add?
No, so again, I think most of what I think I spoke, right? The only other thing that I would add is, and I think you also touched upon it, right? Finally, things seem to be coming together for legal tech, wherein you actually have confidence, people have confidence. So for people out there, especially who are interested in legal as a space, want to work around justice and legal, I think it's an extremely exciting time. So we are constantly looking for people, come join forces, collaborate with other people who are working in the same space. So just go out, try and experiment and see what comes of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much.